Hoy vamos a estudiar los nombres de los libros de la Torá. El primero se llama Bereshit. Con el Principado los cielos y tierra creó. El segundo se llama Shemot. Son los nombres de los hijos de Israel que Egipto descendieron y luego Elohim los liberó. La Torá es un regalo del Eterno para estudiar. Tiene muchos tesoros que encontrar. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá. El tercero se llama Baikra. El Eterno llamó a Moisés, pues quería acercarse al pueblo de Israel. El cuarto se llama Bemidbar. En la estepa Israel peregrinó y muchas pruebas pasaron ahí, pero el Eterno nunca los dejó. La Torá es un regalo del Eterno para estudiar. Tiene muchos tesoros que encontrar. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá. La Torá es un regalo del Eterno para estudiar. Tiene muchos tesoros que encontrar. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá. El quinto se llama Devarim. Son las palabras que el Eterno repitió a una nueva generación, y así en su tierra pudieran habitar. La Torá es un regalo del Eterno para estudiar. Tiene muchos tesoros que encontrar. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá. La Torá es un regalo del Eterno para estudiar. Tiene muchos tesoros que encontrar. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá.
Little Nuevo Niños presents My Little Manna.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, family of Yeshua, our Messiahs. Very good morning, afternoon, or night in the place where you are, my friends. We hope you are having a blessed Shabbat as a family. Today is our ninth installment of the serial Kylie. My little Manna, thank you for participating. Let's say hello and then to the notice. Shabbat Shalom to Shirley Miranda, Aragon Gutierrez, Maria Grijalba with Fernando, Jeremias, Samantha, and Mia Grijalba. Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to Joel Miranda, Mario Morquecho, Diana Luna, Susana Rial y Alberto Lucía, Valentina López, Adam Wanet, Jackie Luz, Shalom. Juana Márquez, Elia Aragón, Shabbat Shalom to Rica López, Juan Francisco Velázquez Juárez, Loida Barley Forest, Michelle Dionisio, Shalom, Lina RM Shalom, David Hinks, Shalom, Luis Luz, Luz Mergil, Elsa W., and Joana Acevedo, Laura Monroy, and Juan Carlos López, Samuel B. Acevedo, and Anthony Garcia. Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to the brothers who greet us from Facebook and those who will listen to the recording. Thank you for being here in this study time, and thank you for your trust in participating with us. With the favor of the Eternal, we will continue in the live broadcast every first Shabbat of each new biblical month. For now, we have already started the 10th month of the biblical calendar. You can contact us on the social network of Facebook, Instagram, and on the website www.cielosnuevos.org. Also to the contact number on WhatsApp and Telegram to send your photos and videos. To tell us from which country or city you see us, our number is plus 52 33 28 24 91 85. Well, friends, in today's live, we will see events after the birth of Joseph. We will also see how the Eternal makes Jacob prosper, but how he later decided to live in Laban's house. Jacob reunions with his brother Esau, the, the history of Shechem, and finally the death of Rachel, but the birth of Benjamin. Before we start, let's pray. Go ahead, Tito.
Thank you, Adeline. Oh, and shalom, Lord friends. Eternal Father, thank you for the day that you have let us be here renewed with the Cielos Nuevos Niños team. Thank you for letting us have this opportunity to be here in this series of My Little Manna. Thanks because you let us grow in the study of the Torah. Thank you because I thank you for letting thank you for the kids that are here to learn more about your Torah and your instruction. And amen and amen.
Shabbat Shalom, little friends. Greetings from Angie. We are going to continue with our study of today. In chapter 30 of Bereshit, from verse 25, we read, it begins to tell us that after Rachel had Joseph, Yaakov decided that it was time to return to his land, where he lived after fleeing from his brother Esau. And he tells Laban to give him his wives and children, for whom he had served him all those years, so that he could return to his father's house. From verse 27, we see that Laban acknowledges that the Eternal had blessed him because Yaakov was with him. And he begs Yaakov that if he had found favor before him, he should stay, since Laban knew that if Yaakov stayed with him, he would continue to have riches. So Laban asks Yaakov what salary he would like to have because he was willing to pay it, although we know that Laban would find a way to retain Yaakov as he had done before. Later we will see that behavior continues to be repeated. Little friends, what do we learn in this portion? Well, we can learn that the Eternal knew that Laban would not let Yaakov go back to his land. For if Yaakov stayed with Laban, the promise from which the Messiah would come would not be fulfilled. Thus Laban refers to the materialism of this world. For Laban was a man who liked money. He only thought about his well-being and knew that having Yaakov by his side would ensure his riches. So, little friends, we must not follow the evil and ambitious conduct of Laban. Later, in verse 31, Yaakov promised Laban that he should not give him anything, and he would take care of his flocks again. Yaakov would only separate all the sheep that were spotted and splashed with color, and those of dark color, as well as the goats that were stained and splashed with color. That would be his salary. Thus, Yaakov would show his honor and that the Eternal was with him so that his purposes could be fulfilled. And although Laban agrees to Yaakov's request, in reality he did not want to let Yaakov go because he knew that the blessing of the Eternal was with him. And Laban separated sheep with different features from the sheep that Yaakov had and took them to a secluded place in the care of his sons. The Eternal revealed to Yaakov the way in which he could multiply his cattle, and he made him prosper in everything. And the chapter ends like this in verse 42 and 43. Thus the weak animals were for Laban, and the robust ones were for Yaakov. In this way, Yaakov prospered greatly and came to have many flocks, male and female servants, camels, and donkeys. Little friends, Yaakov was always strengthened by the Eternal. He obeyed his instructions in this stage of his life as well as in previous ones that we have already. He was faithful in everything despite the fact that Laban tried to persuade him several times. For this reason, the Eternal blessed the work of his hands. In the same way, we, Talmidei of Yeshua, must remain obedient and always firm like Yaakov, despite everything the world offers us, keeping on the purposes of the Eternal. This has been my little manna for today, little friends. Go ahead, Yoel.
I'm Chaim. With chapter Shalom Talmidei. I'm Chaim. Let us continue with chapter 31 of Genesis. We have been seeing a very important story where the Eternal had been making Jacob prosper in the house of Laban. His cattle was of better quality. In verse 1 and onwards, we see that Jacob listens to what the sons of Laban were saying. Jacob was taking everything that belongs to our father. We also see that Laban was not pleased anymore with his earnings, unlike how he was previously when he was prospering thanks to Jacob's work. Ever since he served him, the Eternal tells him to return to the land of his fathers and relatives. Therefore Jacob took Rachel and Leah to the camp where his flock was located, and he told them that he noticed that their father was not pleased anymore with his presence as he used to be before. Jacob had strived to serve their father very much, yet his uncle had been fooling him and changing his salary up to 10 times, but the Eternal had been helping him. We see very interesting things. While Saint Laban had given him a salary part of the flocks that had certain characteristics, all of the sheep were born for Jacob. He also saw in he also saw it in a dream. It was a demonstration that it was the work of the Father. Also in the dream, an angel spoke to him because the Eternal knew how Laban was treating him. Therefore he said to him, I am the Elohim of Bethel, where you anointed a memorial stone, where you made a vow to me. Remember the stone in the place where Jacob saw the dream of the stars that reached the sky? That angel also told him, get up now and leave this land, and return to the land of your relatives. In verses 14 and onwards, Rachel and Leah told him, is there still a portion and inheritance for us in our father's house? Aren't we considered foreigners to him? For he had sold us and has also completely used up our bridal price when Jacob worked for them. For all the riches that Elohim was taking away from our father is for us and for our children. So now everything the Eternal said to you, do it. Therefore Jacob took in his children and wives, and all of his family alongside his flag, and he headed towards the land of his father Isaac, to Canaan. Little friends, let's observe that Jacob doesn't give himself into his emotions, and he didn't act with vengeance, despite how badly he was treated by Laban. He prospered thanks to the help of the father, who avenged all injustice. And Jacob recognized that. Jacob had left without announcing to Laban while he was busy, and Rachel stole his idols. This was probably done so that Laban would not try to guess or consult his idols to know what that Jacob had left and where he was headed, to given that in those cultures and families there was idolatry. What Jacob's parents wanted was for him to have his family with only one lineage, and that wasn't corrupt with the Canaanites. And by Rachel and Leah becoming his wives, they were to live the customs that they had learned from their father, and they would also serve the Eternal. After 3 days, Laban was told to Jacob that Jacob had fled, and Laban went after him for a week. But that night the Eternal spoke to him in a dream and warned him to be careful of treating or cursing him. In verse 25, once Laban reaches him, he tells him, what have you done? You have deceived me, and you have carried off my daughters like captives in war. Why didn't you tell me, so I could send you away with a farewell celebration? You didn't let me kiss my grandchildren and my daughters goodbye. He also told him that he had the power to learn to harm them, but the father had provided from doing so. Furthermore, he also blamed him for stealing his idols, but Jacob responds that he had fled because he had feared that he would take away his wives from him. But he told him to reach for his idols through his things, and that whoever had them would be punished. But he did not know that Rachel had stolen them. He entered to Jacob's tent, in Leah's tent, the servants, and finally he entered Rachel's. But he did not find them because Rachel Rachel had hidden them under her camel sandal, and he had sit on top of it, and told him that she could not stand up before him to say hello because she was on her period days as a woman. Bothered, Jacob asked what had they done wrong so that Laban would chase him that way, since he had not robbed anything. He had worked for him for 20 years, 14 for his daughters and 6 for his cattle, and with a lot of effort, and he never deceived him. However, Laban changed his salary 10 times, but the Eternal did not allow for him to leave empty-handed. In verses 14 and onwards, Laban prospered and proposed a covenant, and both took part, with a stone as a pillar, and many more stones put together in a heap as a sign of peace, and that everything they would do should be for good. And they spent the night there. Tommy Day. Here we learn that vengeance belongs to the Eternal. We should only act in accordance to his will. We must not behave like Laban, who was only interested in will, besides being idolatrous towards his goods and material goods. Well, this is my little manna for today. Until next time, go ahead, Anthony.
Thank you, Yuan. Shabbat shalom, my little friends. Greeting from Anthony. We have seen how Jacob goes out from the house of Laban. Now, continuing in chapter 32, we will see how Jacob retakes his pilgrimage. But now with a great family, because 20 years have passed since he had ran away from his brother Esau. We read in verse 1 and onward that while he was on his way, he had seen angels. This means that the Eternal was with him. Jacob sent some messengers to his brother Esau, to Edom. Little friends, do you remember what Edom means? Then he sends a messenger to Esau, your servant. Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban and have remained there till now. I have cattle and donkeys, sheep and goats, male and female servants. Now I am sending this message to my Lord, that I may find favor in your eyes. He did it to show him respect, now that he knew that Esau had gotten angry with him for taking the blessing before their father died. In verse 6, the messenger returned and told Jacob, your brother comes to see you with 400 men. Jacob had a lot of fear. Then he divided the camp so that if Esau attacked one, the other one could escape. And he prayed to the Eternal, begging him to remember the promise. The patriarchs, do you remember it? I will multiply your descendants like the sand of the sea. Then what he had in hand, he took hundreds and hundreds of animals, goats, sheep, camel, donkeys, etc. He had taken at least 550 animals. Those were a lot of animals. Can you imagine it? We can see that Jacob wasn't obsessed with his richnesses, unlike Laban, who for sure would not have given that amount of animals to somebody else. Here we see that Jacob's humility, he separated them by herds and sent them with his servants to where Esau was, and told them that when Esau saw them and asked to say, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are a gift sent by my lord Esau. He is coming behind us because he thought maybe his anger will calm down when he sees all of this. He might forgive me. Then came the night, and Jacob went towards Esau. But Jacob stayed alone. A man that appeared was fighting with him until the morning. But the man saw that he couldn't fight with him, so he attacked Jacob's thigh and dislocated it. So then the man told him, "Let me go because it is almost morning." But Jacob told him, "I will not let you go until you bless me." Little friends, here we find something very interesting, and it is that Jacob knew that it was no ordinary person, it was an angel. That is why Jacob knew that being someone special, if he had received his blessing, everything would go good since he had been passing through a lot of difficulties. The male asked for his name, and when Jacob responded, the malach or messenger told him, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, it will be Israel, because you have fought against Elohim and men. You have defeated." And Jacob asked for his name, but the malach didn't respond and blessed him there and then left. Jacob named that land Peniel, which means before Elohim, because he had seen Elohim face to face, and he had survived. Only a little bit of people could be in the presence of the Eternal like that. Then he left limping because he was hurt. Little friends, here we find a great teaching. Jacob has stayed humble now and he has not been proud of himself before his brother. And and we will see how Asaph reacts. What do you imagine? Do you think Asaph will really forgive Jacob? Well, we will see in the next portion. So this has been my little manna for today. Until next time. Go ahead, Joan.
Shabbat Shalom, little friends. Greetings from Joan. Now we will continue with chapter 33 of Bereshit. From verses 1 to 7, it says, When Jacob looked up, he saw his brother Esau and 400 men were with him. Then what Jacob did was take care of his family. It says that he separated the children between Leah, Rachel, and the two servants. He put the servants and their children first, then Leah and her children, and at the end Rachel and Joseph. Jacob went in front and inclined 7 times on the ground until he got to where his brother Esau was, who ran to see him. He hugged him and said hi with a lot of joy. Then came the servants and their children, and they did reverence, how it was a custom to do in between family members and friends, as a sign of respect. Then came Leah and her children, and at the end came Rachel and Joseph, and did the same. We see how the Eternal protects Jacob from the anger of his brother Esau and the future nation that would bring the future promise of salvation, our Messiah Yeshua, and fulfill the promise that he did with Abraham and Isaac. In the verses from 8 to 17, it says, Esau asks Jacob, "What do you propose with all of these groups that I have found on the way?" He was referring to the gifts that Jacob had sent to calm his anger down. And Jacob tells him that what he wanted was to find his favor. Then Jacob tells him, "Accept my gift," because with much favor he had received him. That is, the Eternal showed mercy to Jacob through his brother Esau. Then Esau accepted his gifts and said, "Let's go, and I will go before you." Here we see that Esau's heart had gotten happy, and Jacob succeeded in calming down his brother's anger with his gifts. But Esau didn't really forgive Jacob, whose anger was only calmed down by the material. Little friends, we see again that Esau only wanted the material things, and he didn't even forgive his brother Jacob. We, like Talmudei of Yeshua, have to forgive our brothers from heart, not only because of material things. The Eternal does not like this. Jacob also tells his brother that he will go at the pace of the children and the cattle that had young. Esau wanted to leave people that were with him to Jacob, but Jacob said, "Why this, if I have found favor in your eyes?" After all of this, Esau continued his way to Seir, and Jacob went to Sukkot and made a cabin for him and for his cattle. That's why he named the place Sukkot. In the verses 18 to 20, it says in the scriptures that Jacob arrived to the city of Shechem in the land of Canaan and bought a land where he put a house and made an altar in gratitude and exaltation to the Eternal, and he named it El is Israel's Elohim. Like we see, little friends, Jacob fulfilled with going back to the land that the Eternal had promised that he was going to go back. And although Jacob passed through a lot of difficulties, he was always firm and obedient in the Eternal, and he always trusted him. And just like him, we have to remain in the Eternal, little friends, trusting all the time in the Eternal, and like that, the Eternal will give us his favor, and he will take care of us even in difficult times of affliction. This has been my little manna for today. Until next time.
Shabbat Shalom, Talmidei of Yeshua. Let's continue on with chapter 5. In this chapter, the Eternal Father gives instructions to Jacob to continue on his way to Bethel, the place where Jacob had made his promise to him and where he will also fulfill his vow, as we saw in the previous portion. Jacob had settled with his family, and in addition to having problems with the nervy villagers because of Dinah, we also see here that they were assimilating to them. Jacob ordered his sons to get rid of the idols they had taken and even changed their clothes because they already resembled the people of the place. They had to leave as well the ornaments that the woman used, and they then headed to Bethel. Jacob is supported by the Eternal, and all the peoples feared Jacob, and he continued on his way. This teaches us that we should not get distracted in our pilgrimage, that sometimes the world shows us a way for living and want us to assimilate, but we must continue to Yeshua's promise without molding ourselves to this world or what the world does. We must neither imitate their customs or their clothing with idols, nor wear the ornaments that they use so as not to offend the Eternal. In chapter 5, verse 10, the Eternal confirms that his name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel. The Eternal also confirms the blessing of Abraham and Isaac and repeats that a nation and a group of nations will come out of him. He also confirms that the land where he has arrived will be received by his descendants in the future as a promise made by the Eternal. Let's remember, little friends, that Israel means the one who wins with the Eternal. For all the troubles that Jacob had had since he was little, prevailing in faith and trusting in the Eternal. From verses 16 to 21, we read the birth of Benjamin through Rahel, only that she has difficulties and she then dies at the birth of her son. This is the last son of Jacob from his beloved wife Rahel. In verse 22, we see a very serious sin of Jacob's eldest son, named Reuben. He takes Bilhah with his father's concubine and does improper things. Jacob rebukes him, and we will see at the end of his life that he removed him from the birthright for that sin. From verse 22 to 26, finally, all the sons of Jacob and their wives are listed.
Have you learned all the names of Jacob's sons, little friends? Let's review. From Leah, they were Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, and Zebulun. From Rachel, they are Joseph and Benjamin. From Bilhah, they are Dan and Naphtali. And from Zilpah, they are Gad and Asher. At the end of chapter 35, we see the death of Ishaq. Jacob visits his father Ishaq, who is already old, and Ishaq dies in the land of Hebron when he was 180 years old. Jacob met his brother Esau, and together they buried their father Ishaq. This has been my little manna for today, little friends, and we conclude this delivery of today. Tell me that of Yeshua. Remember that to review this delivery, we have an activity for you, and don't forget to share your photos and videos of the process and your learning. Shalom, and until next time.
Let the children come and come to Him. With the Master Yeshua we are going to learn. Let the children come and come to Him. Go and show for art and obedience to Him. For the kingdom of heaven of children's is. Let us sing, let us sing, let us sing, God Almighty. Come to serve, that your love is with Him. In His Torah to walk and never depart. To learn as a child and never lose my faith. For the kingdom of heaven of children's is. Children come and come to Him. With the Master Yeshua we are going to learn. Let the children come and come to Him. Don't show for art and obedience to Him. For the kingdom of heaven of children's is. Let us sing.